The transport shuttle touched down on the landing platform with a soft hiss of pressure systems. Kate Morgan grabbed her bag and stood up from her seat. Through the small window, she could see the massive buildings of the Galactic Coalition Academy stretching toward a purple sky. Two suns hung above the horizon, casting long shadows across the polished stone walkways. She was the first human to ever set foot in this place. Kate was 23 years old, with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and calm gray eyes that rarely showed emotion. She wore the standard Coalition uniform, but it fit her differently than it fit the other species. Humans were smaller, softer. They did not have scales or armor or extra limbs. To the aliens waiting outside, she probably looked like a child playing dress-up. She did not care what they thought. Kate walked down the ramp and stepped onto alien soil for the first time. The air smelled different here, like copper and rain. She adjusted the strap on her shoulder and kept walking toward the registration building. Behind her, she heard the whispers begin. Is that the human? So small. How did they even qualify? Political favor. Has to be. Look at her. Kate ignored them. She had heard worse back home. She had heard worse from her own people when she first started shooting competitions as a girl. Words were just sounds. They meant nothing unless you let them mean something. The registration building was filled with cadets from across the galaxy. Kate saw the Kethari first. They were massive creatures, standing over 7 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and skin like gray stone. Their eyes were small and black, and they moved with the confidence of beings who had never lost a fight. The Kethari were known as the greatest warriors in the Coalition. They had been fighting wars since before humans learned to make fire. Then there were the Velisari. They were tall and thin, with silver skin and large eyes that glowed faintly blue. Their eyes were not natural. Every Velisari soldier had optical implants installed at birth, giving them perfect vision in any light condition. They could see heat signatures, track movement at impossible distances, and zoom their vision like a camera. When it came to shooting, they were considered unmatched. Kate also spotted a few Dravosi in the crowd. They were silicon-based life forms, their bodies made of something like living crystal. They did not breathe. They did not blink. They could hold perfectly still for hours without effort, making them ideal snipers. One of them turned its flat, featureless face toward her and stared without expression. Kate stared back until it looked away. She registered her name and received her quarters assignment. The officer behind the desk, a Velisari with a scar across one glowing eye, glanced at her file and then at her bag. "You brought your own weapon?" he asked. "Yes. The Academy provides standardized plasma rifles to all cadets. They are superior to any personal weapon." "I understand," Kate said. "I would still like to keep mine." The officer shrugged. "As you wish. It will not help you here." Kate took her assignment card and walked toward the dormitory building. The hallways were wide and clean, designed for species much larger than humans. Her footsteps echoed against the walls. She found her room on the 3rd floor, a small space with a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the training grounds. She set her bag on the bed and unzipped it carefully. Inside, wrapped in synthetic leather, was her grandfather's rifle. It was an old weapon by any standard. Chemical propellant, not plasma. Manual bolt action, not automatic. The scope was simple, glass and metal, adjusted by hand with small dials. There was no targeting computer, no neural link, no artificial intelligence to help with aim. The stock was made of real wood, worn smooth by decades of use. Her grandfather had carved it himself when he was young, and he had taught Kate to shoot with this very rifle when she was 6 years old. She lifted it from the bag and held it in her hands. It felt like home. A knock came at her door. Kate set the rifle on the bed and opened it. A Kethari stood in the hallway, flanked by 2 others of his kind. He was the largest of the 3, with deep scars across his chest and arms that spoke of many battles. His small black eyes looked down at her with amusement. "So you are the human," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I am," Kate replied. "I am Vorath. My family has sent warriors to this academy for 9 generations. We have never failed to graduate at the top of the class." He leaned closer, and Kate could smell something like smoke on his breath. "I wanted to see what kind of creature the Coalition considers worthy of standing beside us." Kate said nothing. Vorath looked past her into the room. His eyes found the rifle on the bed, and he laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks falling. "What is that? Did the human bring an antique?" He turned to his companions, who laughed along with him. "Perhaps she means to club her targets with it. Or maybe it is a toy from her homeworld. A comfort object for the scared little human." The other Kethari laughed louder. Kate looked at Vorath without expression. "Is there something else you wanted?" Vorath's laughter faded. He studied her face, perhaps looking for fear or anger. He found neither. "You will not last 1 week," he said finally. "Humans do not belong here. You are soft, weak. Your species has nothing to offer the galaxy, except your strange persistence in surviving, where you should have died long ago." "Maybe," Kate said. "We will see." She closed the door in his face. Alone again, Kate sat on the edge of her bed and picked up the rifle. She pulled a cleaning kit from her bag and began the ritual she had performed 10,000 times before. She disassembled the weapon piece by piece, cleaning each part with careful attention. The bolt, the barrel, the trigger assembly. She oiled the moving parts and wiped down the stock with a soft cloth. Outside her window, the twin suns began to set. The purple sky turned dark, and strange stars appeared, constellations she did not recognize. She was far from home, far from Montana, far from the mountains where her grandfather had taught her to shoot, where she had learned to be patient and still and quiet. But the rifle in her hands was the same. The skills in her mind were the same. And the calm in her heart was the same as it had always been. Let them laugh, she thought. Let them mock. Words were just sounds. When the time came, her rifle would speak for her. Training began on the first morning with the assembly in the main hall. Kate stood among the other cadets, feeling very small, surrounded by so many large bodies. There were 47 cadets in total from 12 different species. She was the only human. Senior Instructor Jael walked onto the stage at the front of the hall. He was Velisari, tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to glow faintly in the light. Unlike the other Velisari Kate had seen, his optical implants glowed a deep gold instead of blue. This marked him as a veteran of the highest order. His service record showed 17 combat commendations and over 300 confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. He was considered one of the finest marksmen in the galaxy. He did not smile. He did not offer words of welcome. He simply looked at them with those golden eyes and began to speak. "You are here because someone believes you have potential," he said. His voice was calm and cold. "I do not care what you did before. I do not care what your species has achieved. In this academy, you are nothing until you prove otherwise. Most of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you might actually learn something." His eyes moved across the crowd and stopped briefly on Kate. She felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. "Training begins now," he said. "Follow me to the range." The shooting range was enormous. It stretched for kilometers across the rocky landscape, with targets placed at various distances from 100 meters to 3,000 meters. Automated drones flew through the air, simulating moving enemies. Holographic soldiers appeared and disappeared behind cover. It was the most advanced training facility Kate had ever seen. Instructor Jael handed out the standardized plasma rifles. They were sleek weapons, black and silver, with glowing power cells and neural interface ports. Each rifle contained an advanced targeting computer that linked directly to the shooter's brain through a small implant behind the ear. Kate did not have an implant. The academy had offered to install one, but she had refused. "Today we test your baseline skills," Jael announced. "Hit as many targets as you can in the time allowed. Your scores will be recorded." The cadets took their positions along the firing line. Kate held the plasma rifle awkwardly in her hands. It was lighter than she expected, and the balance felt wrong. When she looked through the scope, information flooded her vision: distance readings, wind calculations, target predictions. It was overwhelming. The test began. Around her, the alien cadets fired with impressive speed and accuracy. The Kethari used their forearms to stabilize their weapons perfectly, hitting targets at over 1,000 meters with ease. The Velisari let their optical implants do the work, tracking targets and adjusting aim faster than any human could think. Even the crystalline Dravosi performed well, their bodies perfectly still as they fired, shot after shot. Kate struggled. The neural interface did not work properly with her human brain. When she tried to let the targeting computer guide her aim, her hands moved too slowly. When she tried to aim manually, the computer fought against her, trying to correct her movements. The plasma bolts flew wide, missing targets by embarrassing margins. When the test ended, her score was the lowest in the class. Vorath made sure everyone knew. "Look at the human score," he announced that evening in the dining hall. He held up a datapad showing the rankings. Kate's name sat alone at the bottom. Perhaps she should practice with her antique toy. At least then she might hit something by accident. The other cadets laughed. Some of them looked at Kate with pity. Others looked at her with contempt. A few simply ignored her, as if she was not worth noticing at all. Kate finished her meal in silence and returned to her quarters. The days that followed were no better. Each morning brought new drills with the plasma rifles, and each evening brought new mockery. Kate's scores improved slightly as she learned to work around the neural interface, but she remained near the bottom of the rankings. The gap between her and the alien cadets seemed impossible to close, but Kate was not spending her evenings feeling sorry for herself. While the other cadets socialized in the common areas or rested in their quarters, Kate went to the far edge of the training range. This area was rarely used because the targets were placed at extreme distances where even the advanced plasma rifles had trouble reaching. The ground was rocky and uneven, and strange winds blew through a nearby canyon, creating unpredictable conditions. Kate brought her grandfather's rifle. She did not fire a single shot during these evening sessions. Instead, she lay prone on the ground with the rifle in her hands and simply watched. She studied the wind patterns, noting how the dust moved across the rocks. She tracked the heat shimmer rising from the ground and calculated how it would bend light over distance. She wrote everything down in a small notebook with a pencil tools that seemed laughably primitive compared to the datapads used by everyone else. She practiced her breathing. Slow in, slow out. She practiced being still. Minutes passed, hours passed. She did not move. Instructor Jael noticed. He watched her from a distance on the third evening. Curious about what she was doing, he saw her lie motionless for over an hour, adjusting the manual scope on her rifle by tiny amounts, making calculations by hand. She never fired. She only prepared. On the fifth evening, he accessed her file. Kate Morgan, born in Montana, North American region, Earth, daughter of a cattle rancher. Began shooting at age 6 under the instruction of her grandfather, a former military marksman. Competed in regional shooting competitions at age 12. National competitions at age 14. Qualified as a federal-level marksman at age 15, the youngest in her region's history. Specialty listed as extreme long-range precision shooting without technological assistance. The file contained a term Jael did not recognize. He submitted a query to the Human Military Database. The response took several minutes to arrive. When it did, Jael read it 3 times to make sure he understood. The term was sniper. But more specifically, Kate Morgan was classified under a subset of human marksmen with a particular skill set and training history. The human database called them by a name that did not translate well into Galactic Standard, but the closest meaning was something like, one who makes the impossible shot. Her ranking among this group was listed clearly in the file. She was ranked 47th out of all living humans with this classification. Jael closed the file and looked out toward the distant part of the range where Kate still lay motionless in the growing darkness. He had trained soldiers from 30 different species over his long career. He had seen biological advantages that seemed unfair, and technological enhancements that seemed like cheating, but he had never seen anyone prepare like this human was preparing. Something was coming. He could feel it. He decided to wait and watch. 3 weeks into the training program, Instructor Jael gathered the cadets at the edge of the main range. Behind him, a narrow path led into a deep canyon that cut through the rocky landscape like a wound. "Today I offer you a choice," he said. "There is a challenge at this academy that is not part of the standard training. It is voluntary. Most cadets never attempt it. Those who do usually fail." He turned and pointed toward the canyon. 5,000 meters into that canyon sits a single target. The path is blocked by thermal updrafts that rise from the canyon floor, magnetic interference from the mineral deposits in the walls, and wind patterns that shift every few seconds. Sensor-assisted aiming is nearly useless here. Targeting computers give false readings. Optical implants become confused. The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. In the 200 years since this academy was founded, only 11 cadets have ever hit that target, Jael continued. All 11 went on to become legends in their respective militaries. Their names are carved into the stone wall in the Hall of Heroes. He paused and let the weight of those words settle over them. This is called the long shot. If any of you wish to attempt it, you may step forward now. There is no shame in declining. Most of the greatest soldiers I have trained never tried. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Vorath stepped forward. His massive gray body moved with confidence, and his forearms flexed with anticipation. "I will attempt it," he said. "My family has produced 3 of the 11 names on that wall. I will add the 4th. Several other Kethari stepped forward to show support for their comrade. Then 2 Velisari cadets volunteered, their golden optical implants glowing brightly as they calculated their chances. A Dravosi also stepped forward, its crystalline body perfectly still and silent. Instructor Jael nodded. "Anyone else?" Kate stepped forward. The laughter started immediately. Vorath turned to look at her with disbelief. "The human? You cannot be serious." He gestured toward the canyon. 5,000 meters. Do you even understand how far that is? Your primitive weapon cannot even reach that distance. "It can," Kate said quietly. "This is embarrassing," one of the Velisari cadets said. "Someone should stop her before she humiliates herself further. Perhaps she wants to be a joke," Vorath said. "Perhaps this is how humans gain attention on their little planet. By making fools of themselves." Instructor Jael raised one silver hand. "Enough. Cadet Morgan has volunteered. She will be given the same opportunity as everyone else." His golden eyes moved to Kate's face. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir." "Very well. Cadet Vorath, you will shoot first." Vorath walked to the firing platform at the edge of the canyon. He was given a specialized long-range plasma rifle, the most powerful weapon the Academy possessed. He lay prone and activated his targeting systems, letting the neural interface flood his mind with calculations. He fired. The plasma bolt streaked into the canyon, glowing bright blue against the purple sky. It curved slightly as it encountered the thermal updrafts, then veered sharply as the magnetic interference pulled it off course. It missed the target by over 50 meters. Vorath fired again. And again. Each shot was corrected by his targeting computer. But each correction was wrong because the computer could not account for the chaotic conditions. After 10 shots, he had not come close. He stood up, his gray face tight with frustration. "The conditions are impossible today. No one could make this shot." The Velisari cadets tried next. Their optical implants zoomed toward the target, gathering data and making calculations. But the thermal shimmer confused their enhanced vision, and the magnetic fields gave false readings. They fired dozens of shots between them. None hit. The Dravosi tried last. Its crystalline body held perfectly still for several minutes before firing. The shot was the closest yet, passing within 10 meters of the target. But still a miss. "Cadet Morgan," Instructor Jael said. "Your turn." Kate walked to the platform. She did not take the specialized plasma rifle that was offered to her. Instead, she unslung her grandfather's rifle from her shoulder, the old chemical propellant weapon with the manual scope and wooden stock. The laughter returned, louder than before. "She is joking," Vorath said. "That thing belongs in a museum." Kate ignored him. She lay prone on the platform, but she did not use the standard bipod rest that was provided. Instead, she pulled a small bag from her pocket, a pouch filled with sand from Earth that she had carried across the galaxy. She arranged it under the front of her rifle and rested the barrel on top. Then she bunched up her jacket and placed it under the stock, creating a stable platform shaped exactly to her needs. She pressed her cheek against the worn wood and looked through the simple glass scope. The canyon stretched before her, filled with rising heat and swirling dust. She could see the target, a small metal plate barely visible at this distance. Without technological assistance, it appeared as nothing more than a tiny dot. Kate did not move. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. The other cadets grew restless. Some began talking among themselves. Others checked their data pads or looked away with boredom. Kate remained still. She watched the dust move across the canyon floor. She tracked the heat shimmer and calculated its rhythm. She felt the wind on her cheek and noted how it shifted direction every few seconds. She counted her heartbeats and timed her breathing to find the moments of perfect stillness between each pulse of blood. 7 minutes passed. 8, 9, 10. Vorath shook his head. This is a waste of time. She is too afraid to shoot. Kate made a tiny adjustment to her scope. Her finger moved to the trigger. 11 minutes. She exhaled slowly, emptying her lungs completely. In the pause between breaths, in the pause between heartbeats, in the single moment when her body was perfectly still, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked. It was a sharp sound, very different from the hum of plasma weapons. The bullet left the barrel and flew into the canyon. Everyone watched. The bullet traveled for almost 6 seconds. It rose and fell in a long arc, fighting against gravity and wind. It passed through thermal currents that should have pushed it off course. It ignored the magnetic interference that confused every electronic system. It struck the center of the target. The metal plate rang like a bell, and the sound echoed back through the canyon. No one laughed. No one spoke. No one moved. Kate chambered another round and remained perfectly still, her cheek against the wood, her eye on the scope, as if the shot had meant nothing at all. The silence stretched for a very long time. The echo of the target bell faded into silence. 46 alien cadets stood frozen at the edge of the canyon, their minds struggling to process what they had just witnessed. The human, the small, soft, weak human with the primitive weapon, had done what none of them could do. She had made the impossible shot. Kate remained in her prone position, cheek against the wooden stock, eyes still watching through the manual scope. Her breathing was slow and steady. Her body showed no sign of excitement or pride. She simply waited, as if she expected to need another shot at any moment. Instructor Jael was the first to move. He walked slowly toward the firing platform, his silver feet making soft sounds against the rocky ground. His golden optical implants were fixed on Kate, with an expression that might have been surprise on a human face. On a Velisari, it was harder to read, but something had changed in the way he looked at her. He stopped beside the platform and knelt down, lowering himself until his face was level with hers. When he spoke, his voice was quiet enough that only she could hear. "I looked up your qualification after I saw you practicing," he said. "Your people have a title for those who shoot as you do. They call it something specific." Kate did not move. Her eye remained fixed downrange. "My grandfather taught me," she said. Jael nodded slowly. "The database explained your classification. It explained what your people mean when they use certain words." He paused. "I have trained soldiers from 30 species over 90 years. I have seen biological advantages that made my own people's implants seem like toys. I have seen technology that could calculate a shot better than any living mind. But I have never seen what you just did." Kate finally looked up from her scope. Her gray eyes met his golden ones. "The conditions were difficult," she said simply. "Not impossible." Jael almost smiled. Almost. He stood and turned to face the other cadets. They were still silent, still staring, still trying to understand what had happened. Vorath's 4 arms hung loose at his sides, and his small black eyes were wide with something that looked like shock. "Cadets," Jael said, his voice carrying across the group. "Gather close." I have something to explain. They moved toward him slowly, forming a half-circle around the firing platform where Kate still lay with her rifle. No one laughed now. No one whispered jokes about the human and her antique weapon. What you just witnessed, Gel began, requires context to understand. Many of you believed that Cadet Morgan's weapon was primitive. You believed that her lack of technological enhancement made her inferior. You were wrong. He gestured toward Kate. In human military tradition, there is a distinction between a soldier who can shoot well and one who has mastered the art of the single, perfect shot. The former is called a sharpshooter. They are skilled with weapons and can hit targets at impressive distances. Many human soldiers reach this level. Jael paused, letting the words settle. The latter is called something else. They are called a marksman. This word carries special meaning among humans. It refers to someone who has dedicated their life to the craft of precision shooting. Someone who can read wind and light and distance without instruments. Someone who can control their own heartbeat, their own breath, their own mind, to achieve perfect stillness in the moment before a shot. He looked at Kate, then back at the cadets. Among human special forces, those who achieve the highest level of this skill are given another name. The exact word does not translate well into galactic standard, but its meaning is something like, one who ends wars with a single bullet. These individuals are trained to take shots that seem impossible. They do not rely on technology, because technology can fail, can be disrupted, can be fooled. They rely only on themselves, on skills passed down through generations, refined over centuries of human warfare. Vorath's voice was hoarse when he spoke. What is her ranking among these marksmen? Zael turned to him. Cadet Morgan is currently ranked 47th among all living humans with this classification. There are approximately 12 billion humans alive. She is among the top 50 of her entire species. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Kate sat up slowly on the platform. She pulled back the bolt on her rifle and ejected the spent casing, then caught it in her hand. It was still warm. She tucked it into her pocket. She kept every casing, a habit her grandfather had taught her, and began to clean the rifle with practiced movements. How? One of the Velisari cadets asked. How did she make that shot without targeting assistance? The conditions were, she prepared, Jal said. For 3 weeks, she has spent every evening at the far end of the range, studying the wind and heat and magnetic patterns. She has made calculations by hand that your computers could not make because they relied on sensors that give false readings here. She learned the environment itself, became part of it, until she could feel what the bullet needed to do. He looked at Kate again. This is what humans call fieldcraft. It is the ability to use the natural world itself as a tool. They developed it because they had no choice. For most of their history, they had no biological advantages and no advanced technology. They survived by being patient, by watching, by learning, by waiting for the perfect moment, and making it count. Kate finished cleaning her rifle and stood. She was at least a foot shorter than the smallest alien present. Her body was soft compared to their scales and stone and crystal. She had no extra limbs, no enhanced vision, no natural armor. She looked exactly like what they had always believed. She was a small, fragile creature from a small, fragile world. But none of them saw her that way anymore. Cadet Morgan, Jael said formally. Your name will be added to the wall in the Hall of Heroes. You are the 12th individual in this academy's history to complete the long shot challenge. You are the first human. Kate nodded. Thank you, sir. She slung her rifle over her shoulder and walked back toward the academy buildings. The crowd of cadets parted to let her pass. No one spoke. No one moved to block her path. Vorath watched her go. His face was unreadable, but something had changed in his small black eyes. The contempt was gone. In its place was something he had never felt toward a human before. It might have been respect. It might have been fear. It was probably both. Kate walked alone across the rocky ground, her grandfather's rifle on her back, the spent casing warm in her pocket. Above her, the twin suns began their slow descent toward the horizon, painting the purple sky in shades of gold and red. She did not look back. She did not need to. The weeks that followed the long shot changed everything. Kate still scored average on the plasma rifle drills. The neural interface still fought against her human brain patterns, and she still ranked in the lower half of the class on standardized tests. But no one mocked her anymore. No one laughed at her equipment or questioned her place at the academy. Instead, they came to her with questions. It started small. A Velisari cadet approached her one evening in the dining hall and sat across from her without asking permission. His name was Sev, and his optical implants glowed a nervous blue. "I have a question," he said. "During the long shot, you did not fire for 11 minutes. What were you doing?" Kate looked at him for a moment, then set down her fork. "I was reading the environment. Wind direction. Thermal patterns. The rhythm of the heat shimmer. I needed to understand how they all worked together before I could calculate the shot." Sev leaned forward. "But your scope has no sensors. How did you know what the wind was doing at 5,000 meters when you could only feel it where you were standing?" "I watched the dust," Kate said. "At different distances, the dust moves differently based on the wind. If you look carefully, you can see the patterns. It takes time, but everything leaves traces if you know how to look." Sev was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I never thought to watch the dust. My implants track wind speed at my location and calculate the rest. But the calculations were wrong." "Sensors can be fooled," Kate said. "The environment cannot lie. But it speaks quietly. You have to be patient enough to listen." 1. Word spread through the cadet quarters. More aliens began approaching Kate with questions. The Kethari wanted to know how she remained so still without cybernetic stabilizers. The Dravosi, who could hold perfectly still by nature, wanted to understand how she controlled her heartbeat and breathing. Even the instructors began observing her evening practice sessions with new interest. Kate answered every question honestly. She held nothing back. "For humans, this was how we survived," she explained one night to a group of cadets gathered at the far end of the range. "For thousands of years, we were not the strongest creatures on our planet. We did not have the best claws or teeth or armor. We were slow compared to many animals, and our senses were weak. A single human alone in the wilderness was often prey, not predator." She held up her rifle. "But we learned to think ahead. We learned to watch and wait. One shot might be the difference between eating and starving, between safety and death. So we made every shot count. We studied our prey, learned their patterns, predicted their movements. And when the moment came, we did not miss." "That sounds exhausting," a Kethari cadet said. "We simply overwhelm our prey with strength." "And if your prey is stronger than you?" Kate asked. The Kethari had no answer. "Humans learned to kill things much bigger and stronger than ourselves," Kate continued. "We did it with patience and tools and teamwork. We made weapons that could strike from far away, where strength did not matter. And we practiced with those weapons until missing became unthinkable." She looked at the faces around her gray stone and silver skin and living crystal, all watching the small human with the primitive rifle. "That is what makes us different," she said. "Any species can be dangerous when they have biological advantages or advanced technology. Humans learn to be dangerous with nothing but patience and practice. We started from the bottom. We had to earn every advantage we have." Instructor Zhal created a new evaluation category at the end of the training program. He called it precision under adverse conditions without technological assistance. Kate was the only cadet who scored in this category, and her score was perfect. She graduated at the top of the class. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, beneath the high ceilings where the flags of 100 coalition species hung. Kate stood on the stage in her dress uniform, the wooden stock of her grandfather's rifle visible over her shoulder. The other cadets sat in rows before her, and she could see their faces, the same faces that had laughed at her on the first day. They were not laughing now. After the ceremony, Kate walked alone toward the shuttle bay. Her bag was packed, and her transport home was scheduled to leave within the hour. She was halfway there When she heard heavy footsteps behind her, she turned and found Voreth standing there. He looked different than he had on the first day. The arrogance in his posture was gone. His forearms hung at his sides, and his small black eyes met hers without mockery. "Morgan," he said. "Wait." Kate waited. Voreth was silent for a moment, as if searching for words. Finally, he spoke. "I was wrong about your weapon. When you first arrived, I thought it was primitive. I thought you were primitive. I thought humans had nothing to offer the galaxy except your strange stubbornness in surviving." Kate said nothing. "I was wrong," Voreth repeated. "I have watched you these past weeks. I have seen how you prepare, how you practice, how you teach others who ask. Your weapon is not primitive. It is pure. It does only what you tell it to do. There is no technology between you and the target. Just skill." He extended one of his 4 hands toward her. Among the Kethari, this was a gesture of deep respect, offered only to those considered equals in battle. Kate reached out and gripped his hand. Her small human fingers disappeared inside his massive gray palm. "Thank you," she said. Voreth nodded once, then released her hand and stepped back. "Safe travels, Marksman. I expect we will hear stories about you in the years to come." Kate smiled slightly, the first smile she had shown since arriving at the academy. "Maybe. We will see." She turned and walked toward the waiting shuttle. At the door, she paused and looked back one last time at the academy buildings rising against the purple sky. Then she stepped inside and took her seat by the window. As the shuttle lifted off and climbed toward the stars, Kate pulled the spent casing from the long shot out of her pocket and held it in her palm. It was just a small piece of metal, but it represented something larger. It represented generations of human marksmen who had learned to be dangerous without claws or armor or advanced technology. It represented her grandfather, who had carved the stock of her rifle by hand and taught her to shoot before she could read. It represented every human who had ever survived by patience and skill when strength alone was not enough. Kate closed her fingers around the casing and looked out at the stars. The galaxy had learned something new about humanity today. Not primitives, not weak, marksmen, and they were only getting started.